As railway modellers, I think we've been poorly served by the big name manufacturers for many years, but now there's an alternative. Hi, welcome back to Chadwick Model Railway. I'm Charlie. Of course, this problem is historic, and without going back too far, I mean, I'm a mere 60 years old, and for my 4th or 5th birthday, I received a circle of Hornby System Super 4 track with a bridge and a little loco, and it had these type of couplings on the loco and the coach and a couple of little freight cars. And on this video, I'm particularly talking about freight. I'm not going to talk about coaching stock. That is another video for sure on its own, but that has its own problems. So I'm just going to stick to it. Whoops! I'm just going to stick to freight as my old friend freight car fell apart. Be serious, Charlie. And I'd appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel. I noticed that actually only about 25% of my viewers do. And also, if you click the little bell icon, then you'll get a notification when the next video is released. So what's really gone on since the day of the huge tension lock? Well, in some ways, not a great deal, because this is in production with quite a few mainstream companies in the kind of the railroad train set type environment, and perhaps quite rightly so. But what we're used to these days is the NEM pocket, and for fear of embarrassing myself with the language, I shall just tell you what NEM stands for. Stand by for this. Norman Euro Splasher Model Baren, just in case you didn't know. NEM is an international standard for railway modelling. But of course it isn't really, is it? Because when you've got your NEM sockets on various different makes, they have different issues. This is a Dapol High-Mech. It's a lovely little model. Until of course you look at the coupling at the NEM socket and it just kind of flops around. It is pretty appalling. And here we have two Bachmann 16-ton mineral wagons, and if I turn them around you can see that they're actually different editions, but there they are, sitting smugly buffer to buffer. If I put them on the track, so just in case you think the wheels are different, then there you can see that yeah, they kind of works on it. Seem to be kind of the same vehicle, but clearly they're not, because when you turn them over and you look at the NEM socket heights, hopefully you can see that this one is considerably higher than that one. So what do? Well, to be perfectly honest, when you put the drop link couplings in, they actually don't marry up very well. You end up with this sort of situation where you're putting them in, except one is sort of 3 or 4 millimeters higher than the other, which is invariably is going to lead to problems, especially going around biggish layouts with maybe tight curves, or if you're considering using them on a helix. At the end of the day, they don't run well. In the past, I've always turned to Kadee couplings, and the Kadee coupling is kind of known as a buck-eye connector. It has this little leg underneath it to help with uncoupling over a magnetic, over a magnet. Anyway, so what you do is you get them together, whack them together, but what you find, if the NEM sockets are at different heights, they don't line up. So Kadee, in their sense, they make a height gauge. So when you offer your wagon to run in, you want to buy the correct type buckeye connector, because the heights of these vary to allow you to connect up with the next truck at the right height. It's a little bit of a pickle. And if you're anything like me, you end up with a huge box of couplings. And to be perfectly honest, I dread to think of how many different types of Kadee couplings I've got. I've got 146, 17s, 19, 308s. There's a ton of them, all different sorts, all different heights. Some of them are NEM and some of them aren't, but they all cost. And shooting from the hip a little, I think it costs something like £2.50 to convert one of these, because I think depending on where you go, it's about £4.50 or £5 for a pack of 4 couplings, which is enough to do 2 trucks. But when they go together, they don't look too bad. They certainly are reliable, and as far as getting your rolling stock on and off the track, obviously you can just pick it up. You tend not to get breakaways, and depending on the radius of your track will depend on the length of the shaft that you require on these couplings. And if I just bring out a piece of good old first radius curve and I put this together, hopefully you can see that we're not quite getting buffer lock on these 2 wagons, so there is some clearance. But again, it is a large investment, so is there an alternative? Well, for the more, let's really say the more gifted modelers, there is something called Sprat and Winkle, which is a much more kind of prototypical feel coupling, and you see it mainly on kind of fine scale exhibition layouts, but this type of thing, the knuckle coupling, is an acceptable standard really if you want to break away from the dreaded Hornby type, the original tension lock coupling. So whilst I mention about exhibition standard layouts, it's also worth mentioning that some people actually build their own 3-link coupling to go between their 2 trucks, and fair play to them. It takes absolutely hours to get the rolling stock on and off the layout, but they do put their tiny little 3-link couplings on, and they kind of look terrific. Well, until they stop and the last one just kind of wiggles around a little bit, sort of strange, but it is what it is. So if we go to start look at the real thing, because the real thing is all about 3-link couplings, which takes me on to the next subject. It appears that someone in the modelling world has gone outside back into the real world, as it were, to have a look at what sort of couplings have existed and currently exist. And there is the standard good old 3-link coupling. And you can find it on various types of BR and pre-privatisation stock. It sticks around, it's been around for years, and I'm sure in the preserved world it will stay around. And there's also the 3-link coupling with the Intander drop link in the centre, and this thing tightens the links together by kind of shortening it when it goes vertically. And it's quite common on a great deal of rolling stock. And what I haven't been able to find out was when the Intander first came into service. It's hard to track down. I've been through loads of images on the internet. It's all over the place in various time frames. But it may well have been put onto older stock, such as older GWR stock, where it may have had a plain 3-link rather than the Intander 3-link coupling. So what can we learn from... Oh, one other thing, sorry, there is also another coupling which appears with a spindle, and as far as I can gather, that generally goes from the locomotive to the lead wagon, and obviously you couple it up and tighten it up and pulls them together, and there's no slack. You also can find that coupling on other wagons, but I think it's probably been sort of botched on. So I've got no real evidence that it comes on as a standard. So it tends to be, or doesn't tend to be, it's always the 3-link couplings that I find. So this brings us to the star of the show, which is this little 3D printed coupling. I think this is the first generation from this particular company, and this little sample pack is the second generation. And I like to declare my interest in this. These haven't been given to me. I have bought these at this sample pack, and I think this kind of around about 18 quid, and they're all different and all numbered. So the best thing you can do then is you judge your NEM pockets and see which ones are the best fit for you. And then you can order, say, I think they come in a strip of a dozen or 20 to fit your requirements. The initial ones here that were painted were delivered as a kind of a, what would you call it, a beta version, as it were. And you can see from this one, if I use this piece of MDF board, and perhaps you can see better, or perhaps you can't. Anyway, zoom right in, and you can see, hopefully, that there is a step up and a step down, because the two NEM pockets would be too low. There's also a straight connector where one might assume that the pockets are in the correct height. In the 3-link coupling without the Intanta drop link, then it just comes as a straight three in a row, and there's also one with a step up, or of course, because it's not handed, it could be a step down, and it all makes perfect sense. In the sample kit, as I said, they're all numbered, and they go through various evolutions of 2 step ups and a step down and all sorts, and they kind of work. I do like these, though I must confess I have paid for this. These were given to me. I'm not recommending them, but if you want to look into it, then I'll leave the link to this website in the See More tab below. But I must confess, a word of warning, I hold no responsibility for this. I wouldn't know if they fall apart in a week or a month or whatever, especially in an attic environment which has obviously extremes of heat and cold. But they're certainly far cheaper than the Kadees and far better than the normal tension lock. So let's put these on a couple of wagons and see what they look like. So here we are back with the 2 wagons we started with, and I've pulled out one of these from the sample pack, and this is a number 41. And all these seem to be the same length, though I imagine you can get shorter and longer ones, obviously, to cope with your track. So this is a 41. So if I pop that one in there, and this one in here, and there we have it. Now hopefully you can see that that is at a more reasonable prototypical height, and all it really needs is a coat of paint and we should be away. And there we are, zoomed right in. So what do we think of them? As usual, it's something I quite like. So after all that, what do I recommend? Well, to be perfectly honest, I don't recommend that you do anything. You can by all means check out the link in the See More tab and have a little look at the website and see what you think. I'm going to buy a set of these and do a complete rake of wagons and give them a good test, give them a pull apart, see if they snap, see if they're any good, see how they paint up and everything else. Of course, there is a disadvantage. Oh, sorry, price. I did say that this cost me, I think it was around £18, and they were actually a British company, but they're made in Holland. But when you buy them in the big long strips, they're 3D printed. They're not in this little sort of sample situation. They are far cheaper, and they come in much cheaper than the Kadees. But there's got to be a disadvantage, hasn't there? At the end of the day, how are you going to get them on and off of your layout? Well, if you have a layout that the fiddle yard is huge and you don't take your stock on and off, then you're home and dry. The way I viewed it is I've got kind of ordinary sized hands, and I would do mine in a rake of 4. So I would naturally pick up 4 of these and take them on and off. So I would need 3 of the new couplings and a Kadee at each end. And it kind of works for me. I think that's a good way of doing it. And then when it comes to uncoupling, obviously you can use the magnetic uncoupler for the Kadees, leaving you with a rake of 4 to sort of shunt around. That kind of really sums it up. there's not a lot else to say about it. Like I say, I'm not necessarily going to recommend it. I think there's more to this than meets the eye. And with 3D printing, I'm no expert, and I don't know whether if you bought a 3D printer, you know, some would be selling the file that allows you to print these things. I mean, but it's clearly a great step forward from both the Kadee side aesthetically, and obviously from the huge tension lock and the smaller tension lock from a modelling point of view. These I think are far better, and they look pretty nifty. So what I'm going to do in my own time is I've got far too many 16-ton mineral wagons, so what I shall do is, as I go through painting them up and putting the little resistors in for my block detection and put the loads and weathering, I will fit in packs of 4, as it were, these couplings and see how I get on. Hopefully, after all that, you've enjoyed this video. It is a little bit different, and I do like coming across sort of new exciting products. Of course, what I don't know is you may have already seen these, and I was the last person on the planet to come across them. But we are, and we've all learnt a new word, I certainly have, intanter couplings. There we are. Oh, and the meaning of NEM. So that kind of wraps it up for today. I'm going to be away for 3 weeks, I'm afraid, so there won't be one in a fortnight's time. And as per usual, thanks to my patrons, because they allow me to buy these products and test them. And there's a link if you'd like to become a patron. Of course, if you want to subscribe, there's a link there. And in the meantime, there's a video there and there, and you know you've got time to go on and watch some more. Thanks a lot. Take care. See you in 3 weeks. Bye-bye.